Let's take a look at return on investment, or better known, shortened as ROI. We could compare it to a wheel. A wheel has many spokes. So do the arms of the influences of return on investment. It could affect businesses with their e-learning and all that the cost, school administrators and all of the different purchases, all of the different considerations. Is it worth it? Is it valuable to them? Same thing with the ed tech department, or we could look at the teachers. From a different perspective, we have colleges. They're choosing schools. Does the school that they choose, is it cost effective for them in the end with their loans and the degrees? Will it pay off? And then lastly, taxpayers with the amount that they pay and for public assistance and all of that. Is it worth the investment? Johnson and Bandolf describe they describe efficiency assessment. Is it cost effective? It's the fifth evaluation of Razi's five domain evaluation models. Is it cost effective? Is it possible that it doesn't have a good impact? Does it have a good impact? Is the money worth the cost of the program? Is it a positive or negative effect? What is that impact? There are very complicated and very simple formulas to calculate it. The total of dollar amounts minus the total cost equals your net benefits. You take that total dollar cost times 100 and you get your ROI. To simplify it, it is basically saying, are you getting your bang for your buck? Is it worth it? But it's not quite so simple, so they have to put it into a quantitative number that can be measured, because you also have to include satisfactions, attitude, so all of that for your return on your investment. But one of the things that, in looking at this cost analysis, is what are the long-term effects? Is it worth it? And then we have Pastor that comes along and says, before you even start, you should have performance measures already determined. You should know what you want out of this. What are your key performance indicators? What are the results? If you don't know those, take the time to figure out what you want those things to be. And then to simplify it, does the return on your investment, is it equal to the expected value minus the funds that you have invested? And then we have an article by Bridge Learning Tech going through Kirkpatrick and Phillips' model of evaluation. And then it says, are your learners satisfied? Was it a positive experience for them? Sometimes it may not be, but often it should be. Was it enjoyable? Did they actually walk away learning what you intended for them to learn? Were their learning objectives, were each of them met? In the long term, will they be able to transfer or change their behavior, transfer that learning or change a behavior that lasts? Is there an impact to see that? Now, the results was added in later by Phillips. If they were to take some type of performance assessment, some type of test, does it show that the change has occurred? And lastly, you would do that formula to run to get that number to see if it's actually worth the value of it. Because sometimes putting in the work is a lot of work to make some of these changes, whether it's e-learning, whether it's a professional development, sometimes whether it's learning small as learning a new app. Is it worth the money? Is it worth the time? Do you support that? Do you have those things in place to continue using them? So at the start, laying the groundwork, Bridge Learning Tech and Pastor say it's all about asking those right questions. Before you get started with the process, ask the questions, know what you want out of it. It's kind of like if you shoot that arrow at a target, but you don't know what you're shooting at, you're not going to hit it. So ask the questions, find out what you want out of your investment before you consider the cost know where you start. So looking at EdTech, the wheel of EdTech, I'm an EdTech integrationist, so this is where I'm inspired more. Kruger mentioned some stats which are really interesting to me. 67% of educational software licenses go unused. In the same survey, they found out 60% of teachers believe they should be the primary decision makers. However, 38% are not consulted. Whether that should be the case or not would lead to perhaps the wrong purchases, apps, software hardware being purchased, because it might misalign to the software, or if there's no teacher buy-in, they perhaps won't use it. So it's best to have that communication, or it's a waste of money. This last one, K-12 public schools spend $13.2 billion a year on technology. So it is really worth it to see if your investment is going to bring a good return. Now, Kruger, in the same article, wrote 5 pillars of EdTech procurement. Before you buy things, you need to check things out. What you're going to purchase. Is there data interoperability? Meaning, are you able to pull learning analytics from that to be able to use as teachers, as administrators, to assist your students in the learning process? For instance, in my school, we have MAP testing, standardized testing with NWA, and we use Learning A to Z. Learning A to Z pulls in the data automatically with the scores from the MAP testing to be able to assist teachers with learning analytics to use that data to drive student learning. The second one is a huge concern nowadays, student privacy. Is it protected? Are there FERPA laws and COPPA laws? Are there privacy laws in place with those companies? If not, we shouldn't be using them. Do the app software, these purchases, do they align with standards that you want to? Is there research evidence that supports the purchase? Are there good learning theories? Does the instructional design match your goals? And then last one is really, really important. So often we don't provide this professional development that is needed for teachers and educators to continue to use the tool, not just in the short term, but also in the long term to make it effective. These are a few tips about REI, specifically at the end from an EdTech perspective, but the picture is much broader. But the aim of it is there bang for the buck? Is it worth the investment? Is it worth the time? Is it worth the effort?